Board of Trustees. I'm going to call the meeting to order. And before we do the roll call, we have special guests today. I've invited the UNC Cliffhangers to come and sing the national anthem for us. So if everyone would please stand. What's so good? Whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous path, o'er the ramparts we watched, were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket red flag, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the brave, of the free, and the home of the brave. And to wake everybody up, I've asked them to perform one more number, so have a seat and enjoy. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? You're just like a friend of mine. I'm going to Carolina, my dark inside and late last night. I think I might have heard the highway calling. Decent
might be gone tonight. And other sides that might be open say, I'm going, I'm going. I'm going to Carolina in my mind. Oh, this weather's standing around me. Said I'm on the dark side of the moon. And it feels like it goes on like this forever. You must forgive me. I'm gone to Carolina in my mind. I'm gone to Carolina. Can't you see the sunshine? Can't you just feel the moonshine? Living just like a friend of mine. To hit me from behind. Yes, I'm going to Carolina. In my mind. Yes, I'm going to Carolina. Say nice things about me. I'm gone. Won't you carry on without me? I'm gone.
So the Cliffhangers are in concert tonight. Tickets are still available for their performance this evening. Thank you, guys.
You're kind of like.
All right, good morning again. I'll call on this time on the Secretary of the Board, Malcolm Turner, for the roll call, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mrs. Artis Neal. Here. Mr. Bullock. Here. Mr. Bryan. Here. Mr. Davis. Present. Dr. Jones. Here. Mr. Cotis. Here. Mr. McCullen. Present. Mr. Meekins. Here. Mr. Patel. Here. Mr. Pryor. Here. Mr. Richards. Mrs. White. Here. Mr. Chairman, we have a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Secretary. At this time, I need to read the statement of ethics. I have that. Thank you. I read this yesterday, but just about an abundance of caution, I'll read it again today. As chair of the Board of Trustees, it is my responsibility to remind all members of the board their duty under the State Government Ethics Act to avoid conflicts of interest and appearances of conflict of interest as required by this act. Each member has received the agenda and related information for this Board of Trustees meeting. And if any board member knows of any conflict of interest or appearance of conflict with respect to any matter coming before the Board of Trustees at this meeting, the conflict or appearance of a conflict should be identified at this time. Does anyone on the board at this time know of any conflict or appearance of a conflict? Okay. Hearing none, we'll begin with the consent agenda, which includes approval of the September 22nd, 23rd, 2021 minutes, approval of the October 7th, 2021 minutes of our special meeting, approval of the final delegated authority resolution, approval of human resources petition to select elected office, and revisions to the Title IX appeals procedure. Additionally, I would add the resolution that was passed in the Strategic Initiatives Committee with respect to support of military and our military students here on campus. Is there any item that any board member wishes to remove from the consent agenda at this time? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda. Have a motion by Trustee Davis. Do I have a second? Have a second from from Trustee Artis Neal. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? In opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Thank you. Good morning. Welcome again to the November meeting of the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill Board of Trustees meeting. The theme of my remarks this morning is saying thank you and expressing thanks as we head down the stretch of the semester into the holiday season. First thing I did, like everybody else, when you get to the hotel room, you switch on the TV, flip through the channels. I found out Hallmark Channel's already running Christmas shows 24/7. Best Buy's got an ad out advertising TVs and electronics for Christmas. Now, I'm not suggesting that we jump so far ahead that we forget the work that needs to be done to make it to the end of the semester. But at the same time, I do want to focus on saying thank you. And I don't think we say thank you enough. Today, as we continue to be here in person, and the university has remained open and vibrant in the face of the ongoing pandemic. Last month, I commented that there had been and continued to be uncertainty. At UNC, we continue, however, to thrive in the face of that uncertainty. But it's not luck or happenstance that makes that happen. Thank you is owed to the hard work and courage of our world-class faculty. Our faculty continue to teach and engage in high-level research while dealing with the daily challenges COVID has created for us all. So thank you to the faculty. I speak for the whole board when I say thank you to the loyal and committed staff members at all levels of the university. UNC staff has pivoted several times during the last 19 months. They serve our campus, our faculty, and our students with a smile, even though it might be under that mask, but they do it consistently. So to the staff of the university at all levels, thank you. It's important also, I think, to say thank you to our students. In many respects, this semester has been filled with the excitement of being back in person on campus. But it has also been a semester when our students have dealt with extreme sorrow and some tough life and death issues. As a university, we are addressing the terrific mental health challenges on campus. What is clear, however, is that our students are the best students in the world, and they are resilient. And they are committed to being here, learning, and going on to change the world. So thank you to our students. I also want to thank our parents and families of our students. We hear you. This board is committed to educating North Carolina students to safety on campus and to providing resources to students so they can be successful. Admittedly, this place is not perfect, but nevertheless, this board has consistently supported the notion that UNC is a place where students of diverse viewpoints can come, learn, and prepare themselves for their future without fear of having a different point of view. So thank you to parents and families of our students. I'd also like to thank board members individually for each of his and her service to this university. Our board is a working board committed to making a difference. One example of service to the university, in addition to numerous board responsibilities, is serving as a liaison to a school within the framework of the university. Each board member has agreed and has worked to serve and actively participate with his or her assigned school. Vice Chair John Pryor serves the graduate school. Trustee Rob Bryan serves the School of Government. Trustee Allie Ray McCullen serves the Adams School of Dentistry. Trustee Marty Cotis serves the Keenan Flagler Business School. Secretary Malcolm Turner serves both the School of Nursing and the School of Social Work. Trustee Ramsey White serves the Hussman School of Journalism and Media. Trustee Artis Neal serves the College of Arts and Sciences. Trustee Ralph Meekins serves the Eshelman School of Pharmacy. Trustee Perrin Jones serves the Gillings School of Public Health. Trustee Vinay Patel serves both the School of Information Science and Library Science and the School of Education. Trustee Gene Davis serves the law school, and I, along with Trustee Richards, serve the School of Medicine. As liaison, board members are asked to listen, to bring the entire board challenges, opportunities, and successes of each school. The chancellor and the administration generally hear, of course, from the deans and the schools, but board liaisons can often provide an enhanced perspective from each school. So board members are truly part of the university community. I'd be remiss if I didn't point out that each of these board members also serve on several search committees, study committees, standing committees that address issues such as tuition. They serve on foundation boards, endowment boards, economic councils, the WUNC board, and advisors on many, many, many university issues. Board members spend literally hundreds of weekly hours lending their time, talent, advice, and money to the betterment of our university. For each member's service to the board and the university, I want to say thank you. The November Board of Trustees meeting also provides a traditional opportunity to thank individuals who have exhibited exemplary dedication, commitment, and service to the university through their life's work and endeavors. Each year, the Board of Trustees bestows the William Richardson Davey Award to those individuals. Today, I am honored, I think it's kind of one of the cool things the board chair gets to do, to name and let everybody know this year's recipients of the Davey Award. Tim Moore, class of 1992, an accomplished attorney who is currently serving his 4th term as Speaker of the House in North Carolina legislature. Roy Cooper, class of 1979 and 1982, who is currently serving his 2nd term as governor after previously serving as North Carolina Attorney General and a member of both the North Carolina House and North Carolina Senate. Robin Shanita Hadley, a 1985 graduate who currently serves as Vice President and Chief Student Affairs Officer at the University of Virginia. Ms. Hadley attended UNC as a Moorhead Kane Scholar and has the distinction of being the first Black woman from North Carolina to be named a Rhodes Scholar. Jean Allman Kitchen, a 1970 graduate who has been a North Carolina business owner, a television producer, and television personality, and a committed public servant. In addition to many other acts of service, she has served on this board as both vice chair and secretary. Additionally, she has served the university as chair of the Lineberger Comprehensive Cancer Center Board of Visitors, among many, many, many other university positions. And finally, this year, we honor and thank both Coach Roy Williams, a 1972 and 1973 graduate of the university, and his wonderful wife and partner, and he might even say his boss, Wanda Williams, a 1972 graduate of the university. The Williams contribute to the university are many, many. And let me say that again. Their contributions to the university are many, many. They provided millions of dollars in personal contributions. And Coach Williams, of course, has led on the court and in the public domain since his early days as a teacher, and later one of the all-time great coaches. Wanda has not only served as an educator in her own right, but she has nurtured student athletes and been a constant presence in the life of this university. The Board of Trustees, during discussion of the awards, was very, very committed to awarding the Davey Award to both Roy and Wanda together. I had a recent conversation with Coach Williams during which he expressed his desire to always be committed not only to coaching a team and being part of a team approach, but living as a team player himself. So I think it's clearly right to award the Davey Award to the Williams as a team. In addition to saying thank you to the Davey Award recipients, I think it's important to celebrate the diversity in the recipients, as well as appreciating the impact that these UNC graduates who serve with distinction have had on our society. UNC graduates lead, UNC graduates make a difference, UNC graduates give back. So to the Davey Award recipients, I also want to say thank you. One last thing, last night I had an unexpected, very short, light conversation with someone. We're talking about a good friend who's battled some serious health issues and continues to battle those issues. But our friend is recovering, And that person looked over and said to me, you know, we just don't tell people in our lives how much we love and appreciate them enough. We don't thank them for their friendship enough. You know, professionals say that in remarks or speeches like this, that there should be a call to action. So I'm going to ask everyone to reach out today to a friend, a colleague, a fellow team member, or someone in your life that has meant something to you. Say thank you. Tell them that you love them. With that, I'll turn things over to the Chancellor.
Thank you, Chair Bullock, for your leadership of this board and for your diligent work on behalf of the university. And I just want to echo the many thank yous that Chair Bullock just offered to our incredible faculty, staff, and students. It certainly has been a challenging fall semester on many fronts, and we would not be that leading global public research university that we are if it weren't for the dedication of so many people on our campus. I want to thank Student Body President Lamar Richards for his dedication and advocacy on behalf of our students at Carolina. And I'm going to also just take a moment to acknowledge the genuinely hard work that each of you as board members, have put forth over this past year, and we're grateful for that. Chair Bullock just mentioned the important work that you serve as a liaison to each of your schools. And I will just say that I've talked to several of our deans and faculty within those schools that appreciate those interactions so that you can learn more about the incredible work that's being conducted within their schools, so that you can, in many ways, carry that word forward, whether that's, to the board as a group, to members of the Board of Governors, General Assembly members, but I do appreciate that work, and I know I speak on behalf of our deans as well. And I'll never forget, we can't forget the huge commitment and time and talent that the board, that board service requires. And so for that, I just want to, again, thank you for your devotion and dedication to this great university. We've had a busy fall semester. And I want to just highlight a few things. Commencement is always an incredible moment in the life of this university, and I'm so glad that we were able to celebrate our pandemic era graduates, the class of 2020, on October the 10th in Kenan Stadium. It was, as I said, 525 days after the point at which they should have actually walked across Kenan Stadium for their commencement. Coach Roy Williams inspired them and reminded them that they will always be Tar Heels, and it was a really special moment for that class. We had the Tar Heel bus tour reunion on October the 20th, and I want to thank Chair Bullock for being there. I want to thank those of you that helped us put that plan together, that bus tour that we had back in October of 2019. And I'm looking forward to working alongside you as we plan for that next Tar Heel bus tour that will take place in the fall of 2022. As I've said often, the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, resides in Chapel Hill, but it belongs to all of North Carolina. And the bus tour is a great reminder of our commitment to all of the citizens of this great state. And we're going to, as I said, we're beginning to plan that next Tar Heel bus tour for next October. I also want to congratulate recipients of the William Richardson Davey Award and thank each of them for their exemplary dedication and service to the university, as Chair Bullock just talked about in his remarks. And I'm looking forward to celebrating both the class of 2020 and 2021 at the March, around the March board meeting, when we're going to celebrate them right here at the Carolina Inn. So I just want to touch on three things today. And I'm going to just start by saying that, at last week's AAU meeting, our ongoing work to try to get everyone vaccinated on our campus. We talked about this with other AAU presidents and talked about the challenges that we've all faced on our campus. And I want to thank all those who have been part of that and thinking about the well-being of our students here at Carolina. And I realized sitting around the room there with about 55, 60 other university presidents and chancellors at the nation's best research universities, that many of the challenges that we've faced are are similar to those that these other campuses have faced. And it was helpful to sit and listen to strategies that they've developed. Also had an opportunity at that AAU president's meeting to present alongside Chancellor Harold Martin from North Carolina A&T on an exciting partnership between AAU institutions and the leading HBCUs across our country. There are 11 of those HBCUs that are what we call research, they're research 2 universities that we're trying to help elevate into the research 1 status. And our goal in partnering with North Carolina A&T is to try to boost them up into to R1 status, research 1 status. We have a long history of existing research and faculty collaborations with North Carolina A&T, and this involves a sharing of talent that has made both of our institutions stronger. Moving forward, we are expanding and building on the research infrastructure to facilitate broader and deeper partnerships with North Carolina A&T. And both Chancellor Martin and I have committed $500,000 to seed this infrastructure development, incentivizing collaborations between faculty and researchers on both of our campuses in 4 areas: data science, environment and climate, cybersecurity, and health disparities. And we know that the growth and prosperity of North Carolina depends on building broad ecosystems of talent and expertise, and that means working closely with our sister schools across the UNC system. And so I'm excited to be working alongside them. We have a number of people in the room here who are helping to build that infrastructure. And North Carolina A&T is a national powerhouse in research and the nation's largest HBCU, and I would argue probably of those 11 that are R2 status, probably the closest to moving up into R1 status. So this partnership will certainly make both of our universities stronger, and look forward to working with them. So there are a few highlights from the AAU meeting. Second thing I want to talk about is that we announced last month a vaccine requirement to try to comply with the recent executive order of the Biden administration. Since vaccines became available last spring, we've worked diligently to make them available to everyone on our campus, and that effort has paid off. 93% of our students are currently vaccinated, 93% of our faculty, and 85% of our staff are vaccinated. And the commitment of our students, faculty, and staff has made Chapel Hill one of the most highly vaccinated communities in our state, and we'll continue to strengthen those protections to benefit everyone here on our campus. Third and finally, we know that the pandemic has not only threatened our physical health, but has also taken a toll on our mental well-being. Chair Bullock mentioned this in his remarks. The mental health crisis affecting our community is part of a national trend, a troubling pattern that was apparent even before the challenges of these past 19, 20 months. We will not solve this generational crisis quickly or easily, but we will support our students in every way possible. We've invested more resources into counseling and crisis intervention. We've urged our students to look out for one another and to build a cultural support system. And we're convening a mental health summit on November the 15th to hear from our community and define a campus-wide response to this shared challenge. And we're going to hear a little more about that here shortly. The rise in mental health struggles among young people isn't confined to Carolina or to college campuses. This is a nationwide problem, one that's been building for years. And we talked a lot about this as well at that AAU president's meeting in DC last week. It has many causes, and it'll need to be met with many different solutions that extend beyond the bounds of our campus and involve our whole society. But we can bring the unique resources and expertise to Carolina to help find solutions that will benefit not just our own students, but our broader society. And that's what a leading global public research university does in taking on these challenges of our time. So with that, we're going to have 2 presentations today. And the first is going to be by Dr. Samantha Meltzer-Brody and Dr. Amy Johnson. In introducing them as they come to the podium, Dr. Samantha Meltzer-Brody is the Asad Mengenmandi Distinguished Professor and Chair of the Department of Psychiatry. She's an internationally recognized physician and scientist who received the 2020 O. Max Gardner Award for incredible work and dedication. to the university system. She's also the recipient of the 2019 American Psychiatric Association's Alexandra Simmons Award in Women's Health, Mental Health, and was named the 2021 Forbes list of women over 50 working to improve our collective mental health. And she'll be joined with Dr. Amy Johnson, our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs. And she has more than 2 decades of progressive leadership experience in higher education administration and student affairs, including roles at the University of Pennsylvania, University of Southern California, and Eastern Washington University. And as you know, she's been our Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs for over a year now and has done an incredible job working with students through this pandemic. So we're going to first turn it over to Dr. Samantha Meltzer-Brody.
Thank you, Chancellor. Good morning. It's a privilege and pleasure to be here today and to speak about the mental health crisis. I have the honor to serve as the chair of the Department of Psychiatry, and I've been a proud member of the faculty of UNC for almost 22 years. I'm also an alum of the School of Public Health, which I did the public health leadership program after completing residency. I think we have some slides if we wanted to show those. Are we going to do those today? That would be great, which may help guide us. I have the clicker. There we go. All right. Perfect. I'm in charge. Okay, great. Who knew? So the national mental health crisis is dire. And when I became chair in October of 2019, I knew we had enormous needs, and working with my Dean, Wesley Burks at the School of Medicine and with UNC Health, I knew the new needs were great across North Carolina. What I didn't know was that we would have a global pandemic, which would take the mental health crisis and put it on steroids. The prevalence of mental illness in the United States has increased by 3 to 4 times over the course of the pandemic. This has taxed a mental health system that has been underfunded and under-resourced nationally for years and has led to just dire circumstances. We have an inadequate number of mental health professionals to care for the people that need it. We have mental health crises backing up in the emergency rooms. We have inadequate beds to care for it. We have increased rates of suicide globally. I would dare say there's probably no one in this room that has not been impacted in some way by a mental health concern of a family member, a friend, a neighbor, because it is so widely prevalent. With our youth, the mental health impact of the pandemic has been devastating. Our children are at enormous risk. This is a national problem. It's also a North Carolina problem. And North Carolina has the distinction of being in the bottom 10, some list the last in the country in terms of resources allocated for mental health. This is something that needs all of our attention and something I take very seriously of the chair of psychiatry and with UNC Health. What we saw happen recently at UNC, we are a microcosm of the larger society. Suicides are happening with our youth globally and certainly across the country. We are no different than anywhere else. What I hope will be different, though, is the response that UNC makes. And I'm incredibly encouraged and heartened by the support of the Chancellor, by the support of the community of Carolina writ large. And I just want to share a few things. One, after this absolute tragedy, I'm a Chapel Hillian. I have 2 college-age kids, grew up in this community. This hits really close to home and is just tragic in all ways. But what has been so heartening is the coming together of people broadly across campus. And I want to thank my Dean, Wesley Burks, for having us take the resources of UNC Health and the Department of Psychiatry on behalf of my colleagues in our department who have worked so tirelessly over the last 2 years to help work with partners on campus with Vice Chancellor Amy Johnson and everyone broadly to have a community mental health response to this. Mental health concerns among our college-age students have more than tripled in the last year. Just think about that. They've more than tripled in the last year. Oh, excellent music to accompany. Perfect time. Okay. What hasn't tripled in the last year is the number of mental health clinicians. And you don't just run to the corner store and say, I'd like to get, 37 new psychiatrists. 28 new psychologists and another 37 social workers, and can y'all come over? In fact, while psychiatry, and I being now a seasoned psychiatrist of going on close to 30 years, what is remarkable to all of us, we've always been the third-class stepchild of the world, but suddenly we're in such hot demand, we just don't know what to do with ourselves. That's largely the bad news. And so our kids are coming in to Carolina in bad shape. And so the issue we now face is that with the prevalence of depression and other mental health concerns, with the number of kids who are unable to receive treatment, you can look on the slide that 60% of our youth are not receiving adequate treatment before coming in. And with the negative impact of the pandemic, the whole world has changed, their world has changed, and how universities have to respond to these kids is different. I don't think we've fully appreciated how transformative the pandemic has been on all of us. It certainly has been on our youth. And where we need to go next is going to require an entirely different way of approaching the mental health of kids. The idea we were just going to all open the doors and say, everyone resume where you were and carry on, I think we're seeing that's just not going to work. They've now spent, a significant amount of time dealing with all the impact of the pandemic in a million different ways. And frankly, they're traumatized. I mean, to the extent the whole world is traumatized, our kids are traumatized, and they don't have a long range view. Their view is very narrow. And so university counseling centers and universities are now going to be asked to do things that they never were before. And they're not, frankly, equipped or built to manage. So it's been a real privilege and pleasure the last few weeks since this tragedy occurred, and I had the opportunity to begin to partner with my colleagues on main campus to think about how Carolina can lead the way and serve as a national model for how we will address this mental health crisis. And so I'm going to pass this to Vice Chancellor Amy Johnson to talk about some of the things that will be happening, and then come back to talk some about the Mental Health Summit. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you for that. As Samantha said, with that context, what I wanted to do is to take a little bit of a turn and share a comparison of the sort of more global and national and state perspective and how it affects us here at Carolina. So I am going to share with you a slide today that several of you have seen before. This was something that was included in your July presentation as well. And you'll note here that we are pretty consistent in terms of our UNC-Chapel Hill comparison to national data based on a couple of data points. Although this is only a snapshot of the data from the the Center for Collegiate Mental Health, as well as our National College Health Assessment surveys from academic year 20 to 21, it's really important to understand that, consistent with what Samantha has relayed, these numbers have been increasing slowly over time. This didn't just happen to us. But both sets of surveys show that students' increasing anxiety and depression are not only affecting their daily lives, but they're absolutely affecting their academic performance here at Carolina. With that foundation, on the next slide, what I hope to do is jump to a discussion of the present day and how we've responded to recent events on our campus. So over the weekend, just as a little bit of additional feedback, I was catching up and comparing notes with a vice president colleague at a large public research university on the West Coast who shared that their campus has had 5 deaths in the last 6 weeks. And we were struck by the fact that we have such similar numbers. And sadly, these clusters of student deaths aren't totally unusual. Campuses throughout the country, including Penn, Cornell, USC, and even here in North Carolina at App State, have all experienced them in recent years. How campuses respond, especially when you experience a rash of these deaths, is critically important, as you may understand. For our part, in these instances, we immediately mobilize our student affairs teams to support students both on the site and off, including, as appropriate, our Carolina Housing and CAPS departments, as well as our Dean of Students and Student Wellness teams, among others. We not only work to support those students who are immediately affected, but to connect with the communities involved, including the campus residences, students, clubs and organizations, academic departments they belong to, campus offices where the students may work as well. And this year, we launched a special initiative, our community support centers. through which students had the opportunity to either participate in a group processing session or in a one-on-one meeting with a faculty or staff member who could assist not only with sort of basic support, but also referrals to our campus resources. We were incredibly fortunate to have faculty and staff from UNC Health, from the schools of medicine, public health, social work, nursing, pharmacy, and our diversity inclusion, our HR departments, all and more, frankly, all stepped up and volunteered and stepped away, frankly, from their daily jobs and took part the week of October 11th through the 15th and dedicated time to staffing these centers. It was, in my view, a remarkable example of the Carolina community coming together to support our students and each other. We mobilized all of this in addition to managing our day-to-day student support resources across campus. And we have continued to bolster and reinforce these efforts with our daily student engagement work that we facilitate in our student development units, which serves as a critical support and also creates protective factors that help prevent the onset of loneliness and anxiety and depression and various mental health concerns. So in terms of key takeaways from these community support centers, on the next slide, we see 3 key themes that emerged from these sessions and conversations. And what is important, especially to me, is not just that these came up in these particular sessions, but that they absolutely reinforce themes that we have heard in myriad other places, in our Dean of Students team, in CAPS, in campus health, in student affairs, academic units more broadly. And they're listed for you there. Students indicated that they really want accessible anywhere counseling. They also are encouraging us to evolve what we have called the culture of care and compassion, especially in terms of faculty and instructors. Many students, as has been noted over the last several days, have come forward and said so many of their faculty were wonderful, but they also cited examples in which they felt as though many classroom experiences that we're having were just sort of status quo and keep pressing on, I think, as Samantha rightly noted, and they want to feel that more throughout the campus. And then lastly, due to the social isolation and distancing that we've all had to do over the last 20 months or so, one of the things that students are regularly telling us that they're needing some support with building connections with their peers and with other people. They feel as though they are not quite skilled at it and they've lost a little traction and they could use some help in that regard. So we're working to translate those key themes into some action steps. And you'll see here we've provided for you a quick summary of some prevention and postvention plans. You may have read that in student affairs, we are launching the Heals Care Network, which we hope will really become a campus-wide partnership and a cultural evolution in which everyone at Carolina can play a role. At its core, it's designed to facilitate and reinforce one of those key themes that I just mentioned, which was emphasized in the community support centers, nurturing a culture of care and compassion at Carolina. The other things that we hope to accomplish are, you may be familiar with the JED Foundation, which is a national association affiliated with suicide awareness, education, and prevention. We hope to sign on as a JED campus. I facilitated that relationship at my last institution, and it's something that we'd very much like to do and have had on our list of things to accomplish. JED takes university campuses at 2 times during the year, in the fall and then in the spring and February. So we're focusing on signing on with them in February. We're also working on developing an online tool. We currently have a tool right now where folks can report students of concern. It does have several required elements though, and one of those is requiring individuals to cite their name. And we've heard, and I certainly know from experience at other institutions, that having an anonymous reporting mechanism can be really useful. So we're implementing that. We're talking about a wide array of mental health first aid and other related training, QPR training for those of you who are familiar, that we can launch on our campus community. We have right now in various places, suicide education and awareness resources. And we want to bring all of those together in one site so that it's an easy access for our students and other community members. So we're working on that. And then lastly, as you may expect, and I was doing some of this yesterday, so I wasn't able to be here in the morning, but we're conducting assessment and doing some research in terms of best practices regarding policies and protocols, talking with a lot of other campuses around the country who have, especially some of those that I have named, who have been through these sort of rash of student deaths so that we can assess what we are doing and how it might tee us up to really improve and I think take this into the future to respond to the demands that we are now seeing, which Samantha rightly said. And in particular, one of the things that we have noted is here again, although we have lots of pieces and parts of these elements in place, what we don't necessarily have is them all compiled into one particular location that is highly public and accessible and visible to the campus community and to others beyond, so that it's very clear what we do in a student death, how we respond and support, and it can help address some of those questions. Here again, our colleagues at App State, I think, are a real model in this regard. And we just had a meeting with them yesterday morning and talked about some of what they have implemented in their lessons learned. So with that, let me press on to one other final note. This too is a slide that we have previously shared, so I know a lot of it is familiar to you. Shared at our July meeting, but I wanted to revisit it just so that you have a visual reminder of the robust services that we offer in our counseling and psychological services or CAPS area, including one-on-one counseling, therapeutic groups, medication management. We also have embedded therapists in several schools and academic centers and wellness coaching. But the next page is the real headline that I want to be able to highlight today. You already know that we're extremely proud of our multicultural health program, through which we have 4 primary counselors who do individual appointments as well as group counseling and outreach to key identity groups and communities, especially to help reduce stigma and also to develop a trust in reaching out to our CAPS services when students need help. Now we have another great resource to tout. Through an agreement that we have established with a telehealth company called UWill. UWill is a national leader in teletherapy resources for colleges and universities. We entered into that agreement October 25th. Our UWill relationship is allowing us to respond to students' direct request for that accessible anywhere counseling, and in particular also to late night and early morning hours when our CAPS department isn't open, to meet heightened demand and eliminate the wait list that we had developed for our ongoing brief therapy appointments. With that, what I'd like to do is turn it back over to Samantha to close up by sharing more about another project that we're very excited about coming up, which is our Mental Health Summit on November 15th. Samantha.
Thank you. So I was honored to be asked to work with our campus colleagues by Chancellor Guskowitz to plan a mental health summit. It has been a rapid race to organize a summit on short notice, but we really want a full campus response to these devastating events. It's going to be a day-long program on Monday, November 15th, and the goal is to bring together all stakeholders across campus to discuss how we can come together to implement best practices and listen to the needs of our students across campus, our faculty across campus, our staff across campus, and the parents involved. The JED Foundation is going to be coming to make a lunch presentation, and we've organized 3 working groups. One focused on prevention, one focused on crisis services, and one focused on campus culture. And these are being led by thought leaders across campus. These are really passionate and diverse faculty members who are coming together. They want to do right by our kids. The goal is to make sure we're talking to all stakeholders. For example, Black youth, Black men have some of the highest rates of suicide in the country right now, and we need to make the needs of our underrepresented groups a priority, as well as everyone else on campus. So how we think about reaching all the different groups and having people feel they have a voice in this summit will be really important. We are working carefully to make sure we're able to announce the things that you just heard Amy Johnson announce, which are really exciting and represent the investment of the campus, and as well as to then learn from the findings of these working groups, listening to the voices to impact next steps. And so the discussions will distill down further recommendations. Again, the goal is that out of this tragedy, which unfortunately is not just affecting UNC, it's impacting everywhere. There's in fact no place you can go that's not being impacted by it, but that we can emerge as a model and a leader on addressing this crisis. So welcome any questions or comments about our presentation.
Ms. Johnson, I have one. I recognize that housing is a large part of what is in your overall budget. What would be the ballpark sort of level of funding you have for the health component of what you're doing? No, outside of housing. I mean, within student affairs, I know that housing is a big part of your budget, but if you take that out, is there a health component of your budget? That's what I'm trying to get.
Yeah, and I'm not sure I have the exact numbers. I know our campus, our tax area is funded about $3 million. I don't have our full campus health number, I can follow up with you on that. But it's probably overall about a third of our total budget.
A third overall? Like, what would that equate to?
About 100 million.
Okay, thank you very much.
Trustee Davis, I think you had.
Thank you, Chairman. This is a really important issue to me on many levels, and I want to thank both of you and Wesley Burks and so many other people at the university for what you're doing around this. I had an experience in college where someone took a bunch of pills, came to my room, and it was very difficult to walk through that with that person. But what I'll tell you is that we were able to, I had an exam the next day, right? So part of me wanted to, study that. I didn't have time to do that, but we have to, as a community, make time for each other. We have to prioritize showing love and compassion to others above anything else we do. And particularly now. And so that person was able to get them help in time that they were okay. And they've gone on to lead an extraordinary life and have given back to the university in many ways. And more importantly, led an extraordinary life with a wonderful family. And our students need to know how valuable they are, just exactly the way they are. And I really applaud President Peter Hans, who recently spoke about his own struggles with mental health issues and the commitment that he and the UNC system have made, $5 million commitment to provide additional mental health services to students across our university system. I have known Peter since he was 16 years old, and we both have walked alongside each other with a lot of things. I too struggle with some depression, and so it's something that I recognize. It's probably in part why it's so important to me. But there's really nothing more important that we can do as being a community of people than to support and love each other. So I say to every single one of our students, our faculty, our staff, our administrators, to each trustee, you're loved just exactly the way you are. And we, if you need help, if you need a hug, whatever it is, we are there for you as trustees, as human beings. And your faculty members are, your RAs, your friends. So I would encourage everyone to reach out. Don't get into a shell. Don't be alone. Know that you're loved. And thank you so much for all of the important work that both of you are doing. Again, Dr. Burks, for your important role in that. And just very, very grateful.
Thank you.
Trustee Arsneal.
Yes, I want to echo just the importance of the dorm housing setting as a former RA, and just similar to you, just having experienced situations where there were people that you could see signs within a dorm context. What kind of additional training are RAs I'm going to be getting during this period?
I wouldn't characterize it necessarily as additional training. We spend a fair amount of time talking with them through crisis situations. But one of the things that I'm really mindful of, and I think particularly as illustrated by the conversation today, is that we keep the RA role in a particularly safe space for them as peer advisors. And we recognize that they are often first responders, but handling this level of crisis is a lot for an RA. And so one of the things that I'm really trying to manage and to reinforce with our team, and our executive director of Carolina Housing, Alan Blattner, and I are in sync about this, is making sure that although we recognize that they're a first line of defense in terms of supporting students in crisis, that they immediately are able to hand off to experts to them. So a lot of our training and effort is on, how do you do that initial sort of QPR, the question, persuade, refer kind of resource? How do you do the initial, you matter, we care about about you. We have resources here to support you. I hear you, and immediately get them to some resources. So we do spend a fair amount of time on that, and we'll continue to do it. Again, I think the resources in the mental health first aid training, the QPR training, and some of the other things that we're considering will really help bolster that in many ways. But we spend a fair amount of time focusing in on it, although I'm really trying to make sure that with this explosion, we are keeping them safe and recognizing that they are students first, and ensuring that they have the support they need to do this piece of the job really well.
Let me clarify. I
Yeah.
guess what I should have said, there are signs you see,
Mhm.
given where you
Yep.
sit. And to the extent that people can be alerted to the fact that if you start seeing this, you may want to do something. It's what I'm speaking to. I mean, at one point I had a roommate who I knew was about to experience the anniversary of the death of a father.
Mm.
And I marched my little self down the student house before that day to say, what can you do to me or help me
Yep.
in case, something starts happening? What should I be doing? So I proactively did that as a freshman when I knew that was coming, but I'm just saying, are there things hopefully that we're doing to help people who may be on the front line? If they see something, say something.
Yes, absolutely. That's a first part of the training for RAs, amongst a host of things, to make sure that they have their radar up for key signs to watch out for, and again, know how and where to refer and pull in people as appropriate. So that's something we're absolutely doing now and will continue to reinforce. Yes.
But to that point, I think one thing that I'm hearing, I think there's a real opportunity to increase mental health literacy in all of our students, and frankly, all of the faculty members. And I'm hoping out of the summit, and this generation, Gen Z, the way they interact, as my college kids tell me, is quite different from the way us older people do. Their needs are quite different. Their expectations are really different, and we're going to have to meet them where they are. Their need for connection, and as you spoke about, Trustee Davis, is profound. The way they're seeking that is profound. The world is very troubled. They see a very troubled world, and they're not able to see a path forward, and how we increase mental health literacy broadly as an opportunity. I just want to mention a few things that are really exciting. And as the School of Medicine, the healthcare system, this doesn't directly impact campus, but these will bring in resources. We've had amazing outreach of philanthropy and are launching a number of philanthropy-funded projects to increase outreach for child adolescent mental health across underserved areas across the state, partnering with schools to reach kids in needs who are not receiving care. And we're rolling out a large philanthropy-funded child adolescent mood and anxiety disorders clinical research program in the School of Medicine that will be announced in the next week, and recruiting a world-class faculty member to lead that. And I think this really will help inform and position Carolina as a leader broadly. We very much want to be partnering on main campus so that findings and things that we do can inform what we do here. But the goal really is to take out of this tragedy and blaze a path forward that will do right by our kids, because we owe it to them.
Thank you.
Samantha, Amy, thank you so much. And I really appreciate all that you've been doing over the past several weeks to help the campus community come together. And I know that the November 15th summit is going to be really important as we move forward. And I know you pulled together incredible working groups around the 3 themes for the summit, and that's been done in short order. So we're grateful and look forward to November 15th. So thank you.
Thank you very much.
So it's my pleasure now to introduce Madison Perry. I said we'd have 2 presentations today. Madison is the Executive Director of the North Carolina Study Center. Madison is a double Tar Heel and is originally from Kinston, North Carolina. While at Carolina, Madison studied Spanish and political science and then attended UNC's law school. He also received a master's in theological studies with a concentration in ethics and the New Testament from that other university down the road, Duke University. But you're still invited to our meetings here. And, but I really was impressed in meeting with Madison recently. The North Carolina Study Center is a Christian study center focused on culture building, educational programming, and helping students and faculty flourish. And really excited to hear you talk today, Madison, about the ways in which you and your colleagues are helping to support our community during these challenging times. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Chancellor Guskowitz. It's an honor to be here this morning. And so thank you to the whole board for inviting me. I've been asked to kind of introduce what we're doing at the study center. And I know that this is also during a time when we're thinking about student wellness. And so I'll be ready to talk about that once I'm done with my walking y'all through what we're doing at the North Carolina Study Center. So my name is Madison Perry. I'm going to click on over. You don't have a presentation? Well, you'll get to enjoy looking right at me. Which is totally, anyway. So my name is Madison Perry, Executive Director, North Carolina Study Center. I come from Kinston, North Carolina, and I did attend UNC for undergrad, spent a few years away and came back. I ended up at UNC Law. I'd come back to date my now wife, who was in dental school here. And about halfway into law school, I realized that I'd rather hire a lawyer than be a lawyer, which was a little bit late in the process. My calling became complicated when I went over to Duke and received my MTS, a Master in Theological Studies over there. So back in 2014, I started working with an alumni board to consider whether or not a Christian study center would be a good fit in Chapel Hill. And there are a number of independent external centers in Chapel Hill that support university life. And I'm thinking about the Newman Center and Hillel House and a few others. And these are places that are hospitable and open, and that also encourage members of different traditions and identities to sink their roots deep into where they come from for the benefit of the university community at large. And so it turns out that there are a few kind of broadly Christian study centers around the country, from Cornell to Yale. There's one at Duke. And so as this alumni community considered the question, we found a lot of enthusiasm, and we began to explore locations, and we identified 203 Battle Lane, which would be the former home of Kemp Plummer Battle. It's on the corner of Boundary and Battle Lane. And we entered negotiations to purchase that property, and we opened back in 2015. And so there was some data on some of this that were on the slides. So I'll specify just a few things. When we opened, we found a lot of student and alumni interest really quickly. And we're not only a general Center for Hospitality, a home away from home. We also are kind of the ministry hub for a number of university recognized campus ministries. And so there's lots of people kind of coming and going. We're open every day from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. and really for people of any persuasion. So people of any faith, and no matter where they come from, they're welcome. We have a cup of coffee ready, and there's places to be. This year, we are on East Franklin Street at the former Tri Sigma House. And if you drive by, it will probably be the busiest house on the street. And we have students and faculty come in all day, and it's just a really easy place to have somebody who knows your name. So I'm thinking some about what we've heard about what students are looking for and what they need and what they're responding to. And we've seen a lot of need for people to just have a friend, and you can codify that with a series of what a friend does, but that's what a lot of students just need. And they happen to find that frequently, thankfully, at the study center. So our mission as a Christian Study Center is to cultivate Christian life and thought at UNC, which means for us that we consolidate the best in Christian community, theological resources, and personal development tools and make them generally accessible to a broad swath of the university audience. And I don't know what the stats would show on this, but there are always more than 40% of incoming students self-identify as Christian. And so it's an easy place for us to meet a general need that UNC has, while also being open to anybody. So our main areas of operation are hospitality, theological education, and personal and spiritual development. And in terms of hospitality, we have between 100 and 200 every day who come by. We're open. We have a staff who's available to care for students and to notice how they're doing and try to link them up. We often refer students to CAPS when we see that professional help is needed. And I don't know how many unique visitors we have over the course of a year, but we have more than 800 current students on our email list. And it's just a joyful and happy place. One way to understand why hospitality really matters is that it's just when you come to Carolina, you just need a point of connection where somebody's going to remember your name and invite you back. I mean, but you don't have to come back, but you know that somebody's looking out for you. We run an orientation camp at the start of school every year called Carolina Way Camp. And we have, over 100 students incoming, come, and then we match them with upper class student leaders. They get introduced to campus really quickly. They find their way really quickly. They go on and flourish in their own areas of the university. And so Juan Castro, the current senior class president, that's how he got started at Carolina, was meeting a lot of people up front and then kind of going and doing what he's great at for the benefit of the school. Our space feels like a home for many, especially for those students who haven't found their way quite yet. And during the campus shutdowns last year, we were one of the last places with regular outdoor hospitality. So you could go and just bump into a friend. And so as a few students said at the end of their first year, I'm thinking about Derek Brown, he said, my college experience thus far has been at the study center, and it's been a good college experience, which was wonderful to hear. In terms of Christian education, just to give you an idea of what our goals are and what we do, we seek to have great resources on hand for someone who's chosen to identify and grow as a Christian while seeking to thrive at our research university. So our stable educational program is a 3-year Christian education program called the Fellows Program. And this is a group of students who meet every other Tuesday night for a meal, a lecture, and cohort discussion. And it really walks you through scripture and Christian theology. And if this is an area that somebody's identified that they really want to grow in, it's a really easy way to get a high quality education interspersed over a person's Carolina experience. We also host a lot of lectures featuring notable scholars and theologians. We often do that in cooperation with university departments on campus, just as other independent centers would do. And these lectures and talks often discuss the relationship of faith to various academic disciplines and also to vocational callings. So we say that we would like for an interested Carolina student to be able to receive an excellent Christian education that dovetails and complements their on-campus coursework and personal growth. So lastly, we seek to help people in the university community develop as whole people. And you can often say that the purpose of an education is to develop a whole person. And so we're concerned with the students' mental and emotional well-being, with their vocational sense of calling and where they're developing there. And then also we do a lot of spiritual care. So students who have prioritized faith seek to grow in that, and we have resources on hand for that as well. Considering our work within the context of the university's priorities, I've been excited to look over the recent strategic plan, Carolina Next, Innovations for the Public Good. And I think it identifies key areas to help UNC serve the university community. And our work really does solidly fall in line with many of the delineated strategic initiatives, including strengthening communities of diverse and tradition-informed voices, preparing students for success, connecting students and alumni, and inspiring a culture of listening and respect on issues where reasonable people can and do differ. So I'll stop here and take any questions. And just lastly, I'll note that
your deck just materialized through a miracle happened while we're here.
There we go.
And,
there we go.
And I don't know if you'd want to go through any of the slides in there that might address anything in particular that you wanted to convey.
Okay.
Thank you, Mark and team over there.
I know from my wife that I can talk too much and run on, but I'll walk you through some images. As I do say, we love UNC as a place where students of all kinds can flourish and prosper. And it's a joy to get to contribute to that in whatever small ways we can. Hopefully, we'll see the creation of other centers like ours that are easy points of connection and community and that strengthen other swaths of the university community. So let me just show you a couple pictures. This is, you can kind of about us structurally. We're a 501c3. We have done a capital campaign. building costs continue to go up, and we're always in campaign mode. So for those who are listening and are interested in talking after, I'll be available for you. We currently have 6 on staff, 3 full-time and 3 part-time. And a number with advanced degrees. So this again gives you an idea of our scope, is that we have, a lot of people coming and going. It was really interesting to hear around the mental health crisis back October 14th, the Wellness Day, getting emails from parents asking us to reach out to students who we hadn't heard of. And anyway, I'll save more comments on that, but it is a joy to get to reach out to see how somebody's doing and then give them a place to come back to. We have reservations happening all throughout the year. So student orgs, alumni orgs, they use our space. It's great. So we have over 700 reservations a year. And I'll just show you a few more pictures. You'll see some happy students. One of the things that makes our center work is that it's a third place, which means it's a place between your dorm and your classroom or office. So if you ask a question, where are our students when they're in between their dorm and their classroom? A lot of them don't really know how to explore campus. A lot of them have been in their bedroom for the last 1.5 years prior to coming to campus. And so to give an easy place that feels like home, that has beverages and food on hand, has been a really happy thing for a lot of students. So you can see we do have a great board, and you'll see Bill Roper on the right. This is at one of our public events. We've had great university officials speak. And with that, I'll leave it right here and take any questions. Thank you.
Trustee Coates. Thank you for the presentation. I think it's very important work what you're doing. Article 9 of our North Carolina Constitution that deals with education, the first 3 words are religion, morality, and knowledge, and talks about that being important. And that's how we're kind of framed when we're talking about the university. So religion is the first word of that article that addresses this. And I think it's a critical solution right now when we're dealing with mental health issues. And I think it's something that we shouldn't shy away from. I think it's, unfortunately, I think over the last 40, 50 years, it's been pushed back and people are afraid to embrace their faith. And I'd like to see us embrace our faith more here. So thank you very much for your efforts. And what can, I guess the question I have is, what can we do to better support you?
To address your first comment, I do think it can be confusing during these times when we do have a lot of different, diversity is a priority and we want to see all students resourced. But to understand religious faith as one of many different identities a person can choose to embrace. And it is really important that students find a place to connect who they are at the deepest level with their opportunities and with the communities that they can get in touch with at a school. And so for us, we get the joy of doing that as a Christian group specifically for the common good. You can direct students our way. We're continuing to build bridges with the university. We're only 6 years old. And so I'm really open to any ideas. But I'll also want to leave the door open for other student centers to do what they do for their various university groups.
Trustee Neal.
I had the pleasure to first get to know Madison, I guess it was 6 years ago, but I had to go to Cambridge, Massachusetts to do it. I'd gone to meet somebody there because I'd heard about the Veritas Forum that Harvard has, where you bring together scholars and issues of faith. And they said, do you not realize there's this guy down there in Chapel Hill who's doing this great stuff, and he's having Jonathan Redford come and have, all this stuff going on. And it was unbelievable to me that something like this was getting started. And I'm just so happy to see all that you're doing, Madison. You have support in a lot of places, and people like Julia Sprint Grumble, so I think this peeked in, and Bill Keys have also been very involved. So we've had definitely board leadership involved. And so,
Yes.
The support is there.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, I should definitely acknowledge that this is not just one person's work. There's a large alumni community who cares about Carolina, and they care about their Christian faith, and they have decided to make this available to Chapel Hill. So, thank you. Thank you so much.
Trustee Meekins.
Yeah, just a quick question, and echo what Teresa and Marty both said. And we've talked a lot about collaboration across campus, and I'm curious, are there other centers for other religions or groups, and do y'all collaborate together?
Yes, we've done events with Hillel and with a Muslim Student Association. I know that there's been a lot of discussion about having a Muslim Student Center in Chapel Hill, and we'd be happy to tell them how we've done what we've done. There's a Wesley Center. So a number of the, Presbyterian Methodist groups have a physical presence. We've been happy enough to get to do what we're doing out of a place that feels like home. And so that makes it particularly attractive.
Vice Chair, Trustee Brian.
Thank you, Madison. It's good to see you. My daughter has been over to the center and to your home many times, so appreciate that. And just thankful for your work. For those of you that don't know, Madison's folks are Carolina alum, and his mom, Joan, served on the Board of Governors, and just has a family steeped in service to the institution and to their faith. So just appreciative for what you're doing, and I'm just glad to hear more about it, and glad to support you guys.
Thanks so much. Thank you for saying that. One of the things that's been interesting has been to see that I think a lot of students do feel like they need to leave faith behind as they mature. And that can, nobody's saying that overtly over and over again, but I do think it can be implied. But to give students on the front end permission to be who they are and who they've chosen to be in that regard can be liberating and introduce all kinds of new ways to be healthy at school. And so it's been fun to see your daughter thrive at Carolina among a lot of other students who care about. So thank you.
Vice Chair Pryor.
I just want to say thank you, Madison, for coming and presenting today. And to share a little personal anecdote, I'm always struck by when I bring up the study center and ask people, are you familiar with the study center? Oftentimes it's met with sort of a blank look and said, what is that? And in my personal experience, back when I was a neighbor of Julia Sprunk Grumbles, I would go by the Battle House all the time. And I thought, what a beautiful piece of property that is. And then all of a sudden one day it had been bought, and I did not know who had bought it or what had happened. And then by sheer coincidence, I happened to work with someone that was a roommate of Madison's in college. And he referenced the study center. And I said, oh, so that's what's there. And so then I reached out to Madison and learned a little bit about what you do and how you do it. And I was absolutely dumbstruck at the mission and the mandate. And it seemed to be going on in plain view, but very much off of the radar at the same time. And I know that you have had a good relationship with the university at large, but just to be clear, you've done everything you have done pretty much with your own funding and raising the money to buy that house and provide this service, more or less all on your own with your donor groups. Is that fair?
That's fair. Yeah. It's not my money, thankfully.
Right.
Yes, sir.
So I think that, as we address some rough times on campus and the mental health challenges, any advice you could give on the connection of those that have faith or a place to go and a benefit to mental health, I think now is the time for that to shine.
Okay.
So thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, I would just say, I do think the relational habits of this generation are different. And I do think COVID has definitely played into that. And so I think it's just harder to meet people. I think points of connection are harder to find. I applaud the university for finding ways that they can tailor specific resources to specific kinds of students. I think that's the right move. I think also having more and more, great faculty and advisors who really want to know a student's name and have the time to do that, who can not just see a student for one specific issue, but follow their overall trajectory. The student success stories that I see, whether it's from the Moorhead Cain Foundation to across campus, often those students have found a faculty or a key advisor who has seen their whole journey from start to finish. And so not moving from one silo to the next, but there's more kind of an overall coherent approach to students' development. And so if the school is here to produce whole people, which is what Carolina does, I do think that more and more of that kind of personal oversight that respects the whole person will be called for.
So Madison, I just want to thank you for being here. I want to great work. Appreciate the way you're supporting the campus community, and we look forward to hearing about all the great work. And,
thank you so
and
much.
visiting that newly renovated house. What's the expected completion date?
June 22 is what they say. So
All right.
yeah.
All right.
I did want to say just very briefly, how many students I've heard from that are thankful that they were in person this fall.
Yeah.
And as crazy as this fall is, they're really thankful to be in person. I know that that's taken great lengths from the faculty, administrators, university staff, and leadership. So on behalf of them, I'll say thank you.
Madison, I'm blown away by you and by what you're doing. I wish I had a place like the study center to go when I was a student. My faith journey blossomed probably after college, and I think what you're doing is very important. Please let this board know anything we can do to assist. And I'm going to make my way over to the study center and have a cup of coffee with you soon. I'm just completely blown away by you and all you're doing. And I want to thank you on behalf of the students.
Thank you so much. It's a joy to get to do what we do. Thank you. Hope to see you soon.
Yeah, Mr. Coates.
Just to follow up on, as I had a chance to sit here and think about the question I asked Madison as a response, could we incorporate more of the faith organizations into perhaps the November 15th Mental Wellness Day, or send a communication alerting the students to all the different opportunities they have with faith organizations on campus?
Yes, as I'm looking back at Vice Chancellor Johnson, I know that you've been instrumental in pulling together, along with Samantha Meltzer-Birdie, the summit. And I think it's a great suggestion to see how we can work some of this into I know we're coming down the home stretch with planning, but I think it'd be great.
Thank you. We're going to take a 10-minute break. Board members also, I think you have at your seat the FCC. If you'll hand those in to Vice Chancellor Summers when you complete those. It's important that we fill out the FCC sort of questionnaire. They require that every year, every year or 2 years. Everybody okay? You okay? It's General Counsel and the Chief of Staff hard at work in the corner. We're going to stick to law and organizing the Chancellor's office. All right, great. I'm going to bring us back to order if that's okay with everybody. At this time, I'll call on Vice Chair John Pryor, who is also the committee chair of the Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yesterday, the Finance, Infrastructure, and Audit Committee met. We took action items to approve the report on the annual endowment fund from John King. He has cautioned everyone not to expect a 43% return every year, but what a great year we had. We also approved 2 real estate items from Vice Chancellor Merklin on real estate, property disposition by sublease, and then we had a lease for the Renaissance Computing Institute. And then we had a report from Vice Chancellor Knuffman on the tuition and fees. And we approved the increase on that. And we had 2
items for informational purposes only, the preliminary design review of the Keenan football has been appointed to that. Recap on where Carolina Research Ventures is on its return and how it was structured, and the money that the endowment put in and the money that the hospital foundation put in, and where we are with that today. So that's where we are on those items. We want a motion to approve all the action items.
Yes, we need a motion.
Can I get a motion to approve these action items I just went through?
You've made the motion. We just need
Okay,
a
a
second.
second.
All right, we have a
Any
motion.
further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Mr. Chairman, the ayes have it.
Thank you. I'll now call on Trustee Rob Bryan, Chair of the University Affairs Committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had a great University Affairs meeting yesterday, heard from our faculty and faculty update, and we'll be rotating through hearing from our graduate students and staff and employees at the upcoming meetings. We had a very energized presentation from Barbara Stevenson on our global initiatives. I think most of us were here for that. Very exciting about the ongoing global work despite the pandemic. And if you didn't get to hear from her, I frankly would love to do some follow-up. Very impressed talking to the Chancellor about the work that she's been doing, and even how our coursework and partnerships globally are going to grow. So that was one of those, I think, for a lot of us as trustees, it was great to learn about, because it's not something we immediately know about. So really enjoyed that. And we have a number of closed session items. And with that, I think I would entertain a motion from my vice chair or from the secretary, or
No, I don't think we have anything to approve in open session. Those will be closed session matters.
right in closed session.
Yeah.
Oh, we don't go to closed session. I'm sorry.
We don't go to
Okay.
closed session yet.
We'll have additional items in closed session. That is in the mouth.
This time I'll call on Trustee Allie Ray McCullen for a report. And are you're going to defer to your vice chair of the External Relations Committee, Trustee Ramsey White.
Thank you, Chair Bullitt. We had a good meeting yesterday in the External Affairs Committee. We had an update from David Ruth, great development update, where we learned that we're 18% ahead from last year in total commitments, and cash on cash, we're up 44% from last year, which was great to hear. And it's looking like we'll be hitting our goal in February, maybe January. So thank you, David. It's great news. We also heard from Chantel Grumhouse. She's the Associate Dean for Advancement at Keenan Flagler. She gave us a great report on the school. They have a goal of 400 million in the campaign, which is 10% of the campaign. And I think we can say, David, she was happy to announce there was a $10 million gift that just came in, and now they are at 363 million. So great job to David and Chantel. Then we heard from the university communications folks, Beth Keith and Tanya Moore, and they gave us an update on the commencement for the class of 2020, and shared with us a wonderful video from Roy Williams. If you haven't seen it, I definitely encourage you to do so, where he described what does it mean to be a part of the class of 2020. So that was great. And then Clayton shared with us an update on public affairs. We are eagerly awaiting a budget from the state, and we look forward to reports from that. That was it.
I don't think we have any items that were done in open session. So before I call on the Secretary of the University, or the Secretary of the Board, before I call on the Secretary of the Board to go into closed session, I was remiss in not thanking this morning. My remarks revolved around thank yous, and I wanted to extend a heartfelt thank you on behalf of myself and the board to Vice Chancellor Clayton Summers for all that he does for the board and putting the agenda together and assisting myself and each board member. I was remiss in not thanking him personally, but I wanted to make sure that I did so. Thank you, Vice Chancellor Summers. No, you're fine. All right, I'll at this time call on Secretary of Board Malcolm Turner.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board convene in closed session pursuant to North Carolina General Statute Section 143-318.11 A1 to prevent the disclosure of privileged information under Section 126-22 and also pursuant to Section 143-318.11 A2, A3, A5, A6, A7, and A9.
And do I have a second to that motion? Have a second from Trustee Bryan. As part of the discussion, I will just point out, as I will make a tradition, we are going into closed session. This is not an unusual event. We're going into closed session to deal with personnel matters and legal updates from our attorneys. Following both of those matters, we will come back into open session, reconvene openly, and move forward with additional business. Just wanted to remind everybody of that this is not an unusual situation. It's something that we do at every meeting. So with that, any additional discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of going into closed session, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, the ayes have it. We will be in closed session.
Yes, I'm not lying.
Good afternoon. The Board of Trustees has gone into closed session and has come out of closed session. Now continue with the business. I do have one item out of University Affairs. Chair Brian, you have a motion to approve personnel actions taken.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I would move that we approve the November HR items and the School of Medicine ACA comp plan.
I have a second from Trustee Davis. Any discussion? Hearing no discussion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, like sign. Okay, thank you. The ayes have it. Mr. Cotis, I believe you had a motion.
Thank you, Chair Bullock, and I'll make the motion.
Pursuant, and I will
There's
say, just for clarification, pursuant to the bylaws of the Board of Trustees, any member of the Board of Trustees can add an item to the agenda and can raise a motion during the meeting. Culturally and historically, it has been done through the chair, and Mr. Cotis did approach the chair and ask that he have the opportunity to present the motion. I just wanted to be clear on that.
Thank you. So I'd like to make the motion, then if it's properly seconded, I'd like to speak to the motion. I move that the university shall not discriminate against or grant preferential treatment to any individual, group, or company on the basis of race, sex, color, or ethnicity.
We have a motion on the floor. Is there a second? We have a second from Trustee McCullen. Any
So I'd like to-
discussion?
Yeah,
Mr.
I'd like to
Coates.
speak to that. So the goal of this motion is to make sure that people are treated fairly and equally. When we start talking about quotas or underrepresented or overrepresented or labeling people, I think that that's not treating everybody fairly. It's treating them based on a category, and that in and of itself it just doesn't sit well with me. We've just gone through, or we're going through across the country, a discussion about admissions. We're going through we went through some negative media attention regarding claims of discrimination by this board. We've talked about the overrepresentation or underrepresentation in the faculty or the student body. There is a memo from a dean admitting to lowering admission standards to recruit underrepresented students and using hiring by exemption as a tool to recruit other groups as well. I think we've all heard anecdotes from parents out there saying their child applied and didn't get in, and then questioning the process. And I think sometimes people are losing faith if they think that decisions other than academic performance were factored in. And most disturbing, recently hearing things like the male-female ratio and concerns about that. I think that everyone that applies to this school, no matter what their race, no matter what their sex, should be treated equally and have the fair opportunity to be admitted to the school, to apply for a job, or to contract with the school. The North Carolina Constitution has a unique element to it. It has the fruits of their labor clause. And I think that that's an important guarantee that we offer the people of the state, that they will not be judged on anything other than the fruits of their labor. So they are entitled, if they work hard, they get good grades, they score well on a standardized test, they can apply and be admitted to the school without fear of being labeled or stuck in a bucket out there. So that's why I'm making this motion and asking the university to reinforce its commitment to fair treatment of all students.
Thank you, Mr. Cotis. I would point out that I've been informed that the language of the motion has been uploaded to the Board of Trustees website. So it is there in the public domain. Is there any additional discussion? Mr. Meekins, is your mic on?
It is. I would just want to point out that based upon what we're going through right now
with our admissions program and how it's working. I'm concerned that this would have a negative effect on our ability to have a more diverse campus. While the intentions may be good, and I agree that everyone should be treated fairly, I think that our process is a good process. It's not working as good as it should. I'd like for our campus to be more diverse, but to the extent that this resolution would make it more difficult and would interfere with what we've just fought for many years to successfully, hopefully, be able to continue to do in our admissions process, I would be totally against this resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Meekin. Ms. Trustee Artis-Neal.
Yes, it's my understanding that this incoming class has some of the highest, not the highest academic achievements from a performance standpoint, and yet it's extremely diverse. So I'm concerned with the notion that diversity brings a lowering of standards, and I think our admission policy is fair, and I think this resolution is unnecessary.
Any further discussion? Mr. Meekins, your light is on. Is that distract? Okay. Yes, Mr. Richards.
To add to Trustee Artis-Neal's comments, I think this resolution is honestly disrespectful. That's the only way I can sum it up. We have a very diverse class, as she put it, and the admissions staff is working extremely hard around the clock to ensure that they do all they can to ensure our university and our campus is more diverse. The idea that somehow by creating a more diverse campus, we have to lower our standards is just false. That's not true. And the language of this motion is just not going to fly with me.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Any further discussion, Mr. Cotis? Yes.
Just as a final comment here from me, this is not a unique concept. It was discussed recently in California. They've been operating in their similar type language since the mid-90s. There was a effort last year to have that repealed. It failed. And so that exists in California, and I believe Texas and Michigan as well. So this is not a unique concept. This was also discussed by the legislature, similar types of language previously that would apply to all schools. And again, I think that to throw people into different buckets is a feel-good type measure, and it is disrespectful to those that are applying, to label them and say, we are going to judge you based on a label rather than the merits of your application. And I think it actually, this is just saying we're not going to discriminate or grant preferential treatment. And what that means is if you have two equal applicants, you are not picking one that's a lower quality applicant, moving them up. Now, I'm not saying that that's happening, but we're being accused of that an awful lot. And in the dean's letter, when you're talking about reducing admission standards to a school to recruit underrepresented groups, you are saying that they are not as qualified, and you're having to reach down and you're having to lower your standards for a school. So, we've already got evidence of that from a dean saying that's what they've done, and that they're going to avoid the equal opportunity requirement and get exemptions to hire based on categories. And I just don't think that's fair. And it's the will of the board, of course, to do what it wants to do, but I want to walk out of here with a clear conscience.
Thank you, Mr. Cotis. Trustee Davis.
Thank you, Chairman. I think every person on the board absolutely is opposed to discrimination on the basis of these matters and others. There's no doubt about it. And I believe wholeheartedly that Trustee Cotis's motives are good. I will say I don't believe that that as a part of our admissions process, as I understand it, that there is any labeling or picking between. It's a holistic approach. It's a process that emphasizes each student as a whole person. And so it's really looking at a constellation of things as the admissions process is taking place. Looking at their many different unique and distinctive abilities and experiences that they may bring to the campus community to help enrich our community. we have clearly made it important expressed how important it is as a university to have a diverse community and diversity in all kinds of ways. And I think of my Uncle ZT from Hyde County, who there's no way he would have gotten into Carolina if you were compared just to students in Charlotte or Raleigh. But he did, and he ended up going on and becoming a school superintendent and did a lot of good for a lot of folks. But if you were to compare him, being from a very rural county like Hyde, we always we need to look at a holistic approach. We are here representing the entirety of our state, and we want our university to reflect the richness of our diversity. From the mountains to the coast. So I believe that Trustee Codis's, I believe that his motion comes from a good place. And I 100% agree that there should not be discrimination. But I don't believe that this is needed at this time to be adopted. So I'm going to vote against it.
Thank you, Mr. Davis. Any additional discussion? Trustee Bryant.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I've struggled with this because I appreciate Trustee Codis's sentiment and agree with the sentiment. I noticed, and I'm pretty sure we have laws requiring that we not discriminate in these categories already. I think that the crux of it is talking about what does preferential treatment mean, and we don't have in this list socioeconomics or status or geography or other things that might also impact admission standards depending on how you thought about them. And frankly, I'm not sure exactly what the impact of some of that would be, and while sympathetic to the I think the spirit of it, I think I'm planning to vote no.
Any additional discussion? Hearing no request for additional discussion, we'll now take it up for a vote. All those in
Request a roll call vote, please.
Roll call vote is out of order unless the vote itself is unclear under the rules. So all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Aye. No. Okay, so that is unclear, so I will honor your request, Mr. Codis. Mr. Secretary, will you call the roll?
Ms. Artis-Neal? No. Mr. Bryant? No. Mr. Davis? No. Dr. Jones? No. Mr. Codis? Yes. Mr. McCollum? Yes. Mr. Meekins? No. Mr. Patel? No. Mr. Pryor?
No.
Mr. Richards?
No.
I am a no. Mrs. White? No. Mr. Bullock?
No. Motion fails. Do I have a motion to adjourn? Have a motion from Mr. Meekins. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Mr. Richards. All those in favor of adjourning say aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you.